Most people think booking a room on Airbnb is simple. Browse a few photos, check the price, skim the reviews, and lock in the stay. But behind that perfect getaway you're imagining, there's an entire world of things people only learn after they've already paid. And some of these lessons, they're the kind that ruin vacations, drain wallets, or leave guests wondering how something that looks so promising fell apart so fast. Before you click that book now button, there are a few things you need to hear. Things hosts rarely mention, the platform doesn't highlight, and travelers usually discover the hard way. Because the truth is, Airbnb has changed a lot over the last few years. What started as a cheap, cozy alternative to hotels has become something much bigger, and sometimes much messier. And while millions still swear by it, millions of others quietly stopped using it altogether, often because of experiences they never thought could happen. And that's where this story begins, with the details most people overlook, the surprises that don't show up in the listing photos, and the controversies Airbnb wishes weren't getting so much attention. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for, what to avoid, and the red flags that should make you close the app immediately. Because booking an Airbnb isn't just picking a place to sleep anymore. It's navigating a landscape full of hidden twists most travelers never see coming. But once you do, it changes everything. There's a reason Airbnb exploded in popularity so fast. The pitch is irresistible. Instead of bland hotel rooms, you get authentic experiences, homes with character, places that feel personal. The platform practically invites you into someone's lifestyle, their loft, their vintage home, their stylish guest suite. And for a long time, that's exactly what it was. Regular people renting out a spare room for extra income. And at first glance, Airbnb still seems like that dream setup. You scroll through listings that look straight out of travel magazines. Rooftop views, minimalist interiors, hidden gems tucked in local neighborhoods far from tourist crowds. The appeal is strong, especially when the price seems cheaper than a hotel. But that first impression doesn't tell the whole story. Part of why Airbnb looks so attractive is because hosts have become experts at making everything seem perfect. They know how to angle the camera so a tiny room looks twice the size. They know how to decorate to cover up flaws. And reviews, while helpful, don't always show the complete picture. There's still a warm charm to the idea of staying in someone's home. People want that feeling, that they're not just another tourist. But the closer you look, the more you start noticing things that suggest the platform's friendly local host vibe isn't always as real as it seems. And that's where the cracks start appearing. Cracks you only notice once you learn what's going on behind the scenes. Because as inviting as Airbnb looks, the reality waiting on the other side of the reservation can be very, very different. But that's just the beginning. The glossy surface. The complications hiding underneath are on a whole other level. Ask anyone who's traveled enough. Airbnb surprises are real, and they're not the fun kind. They're the "why didn't they show this in the listing" kind. Sometimes it's small things, a room smaller than expected, a strange smell, a shower that barely works. But other times it's far more serious. Stories of travelers walking into listings that look nothing like the photos have become almost a genre of their own. Wall cracks carefully cropped out of every picture. Neighborhoods that feel sketchier in person than the listing implied. Houses with major issues that hosts don't bother mentioning. Broken locks, thin walls that make privacy disappear, or shared spaces that weren't clearly explained. The biggest complaints come from one pattern. The listing didn't mention the problem at all, and hosts know that once a guest arrives, they're much less likely to cancel, especially after a long flight or late night check-in. Some guests don't even know they can cancel once they're already there. Then there are safety issues. Guests discovering cameras that weren't disclosed, doors without proper locks, properties with no smoke detectors or with faulty wiring. Things that should be standard, but sometimes aren't. And while many hosts are great, the platform doesn't always catch the ones who aren't. Even listings with dozens of glowing reviews can hide issues that only show up once you're in the room. Suitcase dropped, door closed. It's the kind of experience that teaches you very quickly, and Airbnb isn't guaranteed to match the photos. Sometimes it matches the fantasy, but sometimes the fantasy evaporates the moment you walk in. And if you think a misleading listing is the worst thing that could happen, there's something much more frustrating that guests keep running into. Imagine this: you're days away from your trip, everything planned, everything paid, and suddenly you get a message. Your host has canceled. No explanation, no apology, just canceled. And now you're scrambling to find a replacement that isn't double the price. This happens more often than you'd expect. Hosts cancel for all kinds of reasons. They accidentally double booked. A higher paying guest offered more money. They changed their mind and blocked off the dates. They didn't like something about your profile. But here's the frustrating part. When hosts cancel, guests usually take the hit, emotionally, financially, and logistically. And cancellations are just one part of the problem. There are also the hidden fees. You think you're booking a $120 room until the cleaning fees, service fees, security deposits, tax charges, and random add-ons push it closer to $250. And hosts have figured out a trick. They keep the nightly rate low so it shows up higher in search results, then stack the costs in the fine print. Then come the surprise house rules, the ones buried under walls of text most people don't read. No visitors allowed, no eating in certain areas, mandatory quiet hours earlier than expected, extra charges for excessive use of AC, chores you have to do before checkout. You're paying a service fee and then end up doing chores as if you're staying at a friend's place for free. And when you finally get past the listing, the rules, and the fees, there's a bigger layer most travelers never consider because it feels too far removed from a simple booking, but it affects more than you think. Behind every Airbnb is a neighborhood, and not every neighborhood is happy about it. In cities around the world, residents have been complaining that short-term rentals are pushing out long-term tenants, raising rents, and hollowing out communities. Streets that used to be filled with locals are slowly turning into revolving doors of travelers. Apartment buildings become unrecognizable, with new strangers every week. And where neighborhoods push back, governments follow. Major cities have begun cracking down with strict regulations, caps on how many nights a property can be rented, fines for hosts without proper licensing, requirements for listing IDs, bans in residential zones. In some places, Airbnb listings drop drastically overnight after new laws took effect. While that might sound like a back-end issue, it affects travelers too. Regulations mean some listings are operating illegally, some hosts take shortcuts to avoid inspections, some guests get caught in the crossfire when cities enforce the rules. You might think you're staying in a normal approved rental, but a surprising number aren't. And when authorities enforce regulations, guests can unexpectedly be asked to leave. But even that isn't the most surprising twist. There's something happening behind the scenes investors don't talk about, something that changes the entire stay in someone's home idea Airbnb was built on. One of the biggest misconceptions about Airbnb is that every listing is owned by a friendly local host trying to make extra income. In reality, a huge number of listings are operated by companies, agencies, or multi-property investors. Some hosts manage dozens, even hundreds of listings, and once you know how to spot them, it becomes obvious. These super hosts treat Airbnb like a hotel chain, but one without the regulations, inspections, or accountability hotels must follow. They run multiple properties under different names, using polished photos and templates designed to boost search rankings. And because they operate at scale, they can flood the platform with listings, making it harder for small, genuine hosts to compete. But the bigger issue comes when these companies cut corners. Minimal maintenance, low oversight, generic responses to problems, no emotional investment in guest experience, pressure to maximize profits over quality. Some guests even discover that the person messaging them isn't the owner, but it's an employee at a call center managing dozens of conversations at once, which explains why communication sometimes feels robotic or delayed. There's a growing divide, real hosts versus commercial operators, and travelers often don't realize which one they're booking with. But here's the good news. Once you know what to look for, you can avoid most of the problems, because not every Airbnb is risky. The key is knowing how to identify the red flags early. Here's the part most people wish they knew before their first bad experience. These red flags can save your trip and your wallet. Always check the most recent reviews, not the overall rating, the recent ones. Problems often show up suddenly, especially with hosts juggling multiple listings. Look for patterns in complaints. If multiple guests mention cleanliness issues, poor communication, or inaccurate photos, take it seriously. Avoid listings with blurry or overly artistic photos. Hosts who hide details usually have details worth hiding. Identify whether it's a commercial listing. If the listing feels generic, the profile has multiple properties, or the reviews mention management, it's a sign of a company-run operation. Always check cancellation policies. Flexible cancellation is your best friend during last-minute emergencies. Read house rules fully, even the boring parts. If the rules feel excessive or controlling, that's a clue the stay might be stressful. Search the address on maps. Listings sometimes glamorize the location. Street-level view gives you the real story. Check for safety basics, smoke detectors, fire exits, lock quality. Review mentions. Safety isn't optional. Don't ignore gut feelings. If something feels off, it usually is. And once you understand these signs, booking becomes much safer. almost predictable. Because the truth is, the platform isn't the problem. It's the lack of transparency from some hosts, and the assumptions travelers bring with them. Knowing the questions to ask can make the difference between a smooth, unforgettable experience and a stay you'll talk about for all the wrong reasons. Airbnb is one of the most transformative platforms of the last decade. It changed how we travel, where we stay, and the kind of experiences we seek. But with that freedom comes responsibility. From hosts, from the company, and from travelers themselves. Behind every glossy listing is a story. Some are welcoming, warm, and exactly what Airbnb was meant to be. Others hide details that can turn a simple vacation into a stressful mess. And while the platform continues to grow, so do the controversies, the complaints, and the unexpected issues travelers run into. But now you know the truth beneath the surface, the part of Airbnb most people never think about until it's too late. You know what to look for, what to question, and what to avoid. Your next stay could be incredible or incredibly frustrating, and the difference usually comes down to what you know beforehand. So before you book your next room, take a moment, check the signs, read the reviews, trust your instincts, because in the world of Airbnb, the most important details are the ones that aren't always shown in the photos, and now you're finally prepared to see them.